All right, folks, welcome to our e-learning day. Now, quick overview of what we will be doing in this presentation and kind of just the overview of what an e-learning day is. So when we have an e-learning day in physical science, to complete, you must complete all parts of the e-learning folder on Schoology. If you have found this video, that means you have found the e-learning folder. So make sure that you follow along with that folder. In order to access each part of the e-learning folder, you must complete the previous part. So in order to access, for example, there's a quiz after this video, you have to watch this video before you can access the quiz. If you are having trouble accessing the quiz after this video, just refresh the folder on Schoology after you watch the video and you should be able to access the quiz. Some assessments may require you to get a specific score to advance. So for example, the quiz that you're going to take after this, you have to get 100% on it in order to advance. However, you get as many attempts as you want in order to do that. In addition, the assessments are going to act as attendance for the e-learning day, so make sure you complete those. Finally, pay attention for any assignments which are preparation for class the next day. For example, today we are going to have a flowchart that you're going to need to make and bring to class tomorrow in order to make sure that you can start Sludge tomorrow. All right, so let's get into it. Sludge officially starts today. So this is the 11th today. And so what you need to know is that individual and group Sludge reports, your summative assessments for this are due on Friday, December 20th. You're going to hear that date a lot today because it is important. You have until the end of right before break to turn it in. So Sludge is worth 60 summative points. So these points are broken down into two assignments. The first are your data results. These are worth 30 points summative, and you will turn in one sheet per group. This sheet is on Schoology, and it is graded as a group. So your group will receive the same score. This is due on Friday, December 20th. The final report is also 30 points summative, and there is a rubric that goes with the report, and each person must write their own report. This is graded individually, and each person should reflect their own individual work. This is also due on Friday, December 20th. One thing I want you to note is that if you use your time in class wisely, you will be able to finish both of these sections of the project in class with very minimal outside work. So just make sure that you are planning ahead and that you are using your time in class to work on this report because it is a big bunch of points. All right, so the daily work for Sludge is going to be in the lab, and we're going to get into what Sludge looks like and what specifically we are doing, but here's kind of some of the things, just some of the ground rules that we're going to lay down that you need to know in order to be safe in lab. I'm going to be monitoring these expectations, and if you do not follow them, they can result in lost points for both you and your group. Number one, goggles must be worn at all times. If we are in lab, you are wearing goggles. If you need a break from wearing the goggles, step out of lab to remove your goggles for a short period and then head back into lab. Number two, you need to work with your partner at all times. You will be assigned a partner for this project. You are working with them. You are not distracting other groups. You are not socializing with other groups. You are working with your partner. Partners must record results daily. You will have an assignment called the Sludge Daily Tracker. And you always want to make sure that you are recording your results each day so that when it comes time to finish, you already have everything ready to go. There's always one group that forgets to do this, and at the end, you're kind of in a tough situation because you don't have any data, and that's a really tough thing for us to be able to assess what you did. Number four, you need to clean up your station. You will be assigned a lab station, not only a lab table, but a specific side of a lab table, and that is your station. You will be responsible at the end of class for wiping the table down and putting all equipment away. If you do not clean up after your hour and I have to clean up after you, you and your group will lose points. So you will be given plenty of time at the end of each class period to clean up your station, so use that time accordingly. Do not burn any solids in this lab. Any solids that you receive or that you get from the processes and the separation techniques that we use. If you burn them, they will create poisonous fumes, and that is dangerous to everybody in class. If you have trash, trash needs to be thrown in the garbage can. Do not throw trash on the ground. Do not throw trash on your lag table. Do not throw trash into sinks around the room. It needs to go in the trash can. If you are using one of my computers, you need to treat it as if it were your own. A lot of people are going to be using these computers throughout the project, and so we need to treat them with respect so that everyone is able to use them and that they last a long time. If you tamper with another group's sludge, so if I see you messing around with people's materials so that they cannot get accurate results, that will result in a loss of 10 points for you, which is a significant portion of your grade. You need to stay at your workstation. The only time you should leave your workstation is if you are going to get materials to continue your work. Otherwise, you should not be going to other workstations to socialize with other groups. I will take points away if I see you away from your workstation. Finally, never leave a flame unattended. If there is an open flame at your lab, one of the people in your group needs to be watching it. If for some reason your partner is not here and you're working alone and you need to leave your lab, you need to call me over so that I can watch your flame for you while you go and get your materials. All right, so in Sludge, you will be receiving a tube filled with a mixture of materials. This will include a solution, it will include a mixture of liquids, and it will also include a heterogeneous mixture of solids within the liquids. And so your job is going to be to use separation techniques, including decanting, distillation, which is separating a solid from a liquid, filtering, a fractional distillation, which is how we separate a liquid from a liquid, and physical means, tweezers, magnets, hand, a sieve, or a sifter. Once you have separated your materials, you will then be doing property testing. This will include determining boiling point, color, conductivity, density, flammability, magnetism, malleability, odor, and solubility. There will be specific ones depending on the substance that you are testing, but just know that this lab focuses on using separation techniques and property tests. Now, when you go into Schoology, you will notice that we have a pink folder called Sludge. You will need to go ahead and click into that folder in order to access the materials. So the first thing that we are going to look at is the Sludge Daily Tracker, and that is in that pink Sludge folder. Now, we're going to go through what this assignment looks like, and we're going to talk about what everything is, but here's what you need to know. You need to fill out every single box. Every box relates to something on the rubric that will be assessed for points. If you leave a box blank, you are leaving points on the table. Accuracy does count. Now, you don't have to be accurate down to like the 100th space of a calculation. However, if we're looking at density of something, if we're talking about the density of a piece of metal and you tell me that has a density of 100 grams per milliliter, that doesn't make sense. So basically, the numbers you get should make sense for what you're doing. Same thing if you get a boiling point for a liquid and that boiling point is 0 degrees Celsius. That doesn't make sense because 0 degrees Celsius is the freezing point of water. So make sure that your numbers make sense. Now, anytime you are working, you should have your Sludge Daily Tracker open so that you can be adding data into it as you go. I will only accept the Schoology submission. You are free to track data on in a notebook or on a piece of paper, whatever you want. However, when it comes to assessing, I will only accept the Schoology submission. You have to submit that digital submission. As you are going through these different materials that you need to get, keep in mind that we have a lot of techniques and testing that we need to do, and so there is a lot of resources to you. Your Unit 2 packet is a fabulous tool. The Lab 2 that we did on distillation is also going to have some really useful procedures that you may want to refer to, and the Fractional Distillation Lab, Lab number 3, is also a useful tool. I have links to those things in the Daily Tracker and the final report, but you can check those out to see how it reflects on what you did personally in that lab. All right, so we're going to first do Sludge Daily Tracker. This is the assignment that is one turned in per group. So once you are in the Sludge folder, it is right there. So you will click on that. Once you get in there, the Sludge Daily Tracker starts off looking like this. So ours is just formatted slightly differently than this, but it is pretty close to it. So we're going to start off by saying this is worth 30 summative points, and you need to turn in one per group. You need to share this with everybody in your group so that everybody has access to the data. Just a reminder, in order to share an assignment like this, you have to open it and then you have to go over to Google Docs. You cannot share from Schoology, so make sure you open this in Google Docs and then share with your group members. Now, you'll notice here that we have a couple of things that are here. So first off, the pigments here and the chromatography paper, you can ignore that. That's not on ours. But right here, this insoluble solids, this is what we're looking at here. And so what you're going to do for your insoluble solids is you are going to determine the density and then the color, odor, magnetism, malleability, or conductivity of those. You need to tell me the properties involved. So you'll list out your insoluble solids here and then the corresponding properties here. Next, for your soluble solid, there is a solid dissolved in the liquid that you have received. You will need to give a description of that solid after you have recovered it, its density, the color, the odor, solubility, whether it is soluble in water or alcohol, neither or both. Once you dry it, what is the crystal shape, and what is the conductivity? Does it conduct electricity or not? Finally, you will have you will have two liquids that are mixed together that you will need to separate. You will need to create graphs of these liquids as you are doing fractional distillation of them, but from those graphs, you'll need to once you have separated the liquids, you'll need to describe those liquids. You'll need to tell me their boiling point, their densities, the color of those liquids, the odor of those liquids, flammability, whether they dissolve salt or not, and the conductivity of those liquids. So just make sure that you are using this information and following through with it and filling it out as you go. So on the back here, there is, as you go further down, there is a kind of some work areas where you are going to show how you do your calculations for the insoluble solids, the soluble solid, and the liquid. Liquids. So you will need to make sure that you include the mass, volume, and density as appropriate in these and show me how your calculations work. Once again, please make sure your numbers make sense. You've done all of this before, so check back with the material that the data you got in previous labs and make sure that this is about on par with that. The Sludge final report. This is going to be the individual component of this assignment. Each person is going to write one. You need to begin writing this on day one. Do not leave this for the last day of the project. If you do that, you're going to be spending all day on Friday, December 20th working on this. There's no reason for you to do that. You can do little bits of this as you complete different parts of your lab. Also remember, distillation takes time where you're just sitting there waiting for things to happen. This is a great time to be working on your final report. So you are going to open this today and make sure that you can find it. That is one of the things that you need to do before you start the lab. You once again need to fill out each and every empty box, and you need to read through the report and look at the rubric. Understand what it is I'm going to be grading. This also must be turned in on Schoology. You have to do this as a digital submission. So this is where you're going to find the Sludge final report. It tells you it's one per person, therefore graded individually. So make sure that you go into the pink Sludge folder and find that Sludge final report. So here's a general look at what the Sludge final write-up is going to look like. So you've got your name, the number of your sludge, and your partner. Here's some labs you can reference and hot links to them. Your flowchart, which we are going to talk about in a moment, you are going to insert an image of your flowchart here in the final report. Qualitative data, as we've done for any time we've run a lab, you need to include 5 important observations that are qualitative in nature, meaning that they are not numerical. Now, you are going to do a fractional distillation, and so you will need to make sure that you insert the graph for your fractional distillation. Here is some information on how to title and annotate your graph. Once again, refer back to the lab on distillation to go through these instructions again and also see the instructional videos on how to do this. The final boiling points. Once you have isolated each of your individual liquids, you will go ahead and create a graph of the boiling point for each liquid. So you will need to title and annotate those graphs as well. Then you will do an analysis and discussion, brief paragraph that explains the plateaus in the graph, including the temperatures. What are those plateaus? And you'll discuss any problems you see in the graph and what the reason they are there and what effects they could have on your results. For the conclusion section of your final report, you will tell me how did you separate and identify the properties of each of the substances. You need to write in complete sentences and write one paragraph for each substance. Try to keep the paragraph tight and get to the point, but I do want you to make sure you're using complete thoughts here. Insoluble solids, you have 3 of them. You have 1 soluble solid and you have 2 liquids. So as you are waiting for distillations to happen, as you have downtime in lab, you should be writing these paragraphs. You can finish these during class if you use your time wisely. Finally, the last part is going to be kind of just a reflection on the project. Discuss any problems that you may have had that may have affected your results. Describe what you learned overall and what advice can you give to others doing sludge. All right, so the next thing is going to be each day there will be a helpful hint posted on the board for the first 15 minutes of class. Now, for example, your first helpful hint is going to be one group member should be responsible for writing helpful hints down every day so you can reference them often. So maybe that's something that you do right now. After 15 minutes, these hints will disappear and a timer will go up to let you know how much time you have left in lab so you can budget that appropriately. Now, before you can get started on sludge, you are going to have to show me a flowchart. So here's going to be a thing. You're going to draw this. You can just use any piece of paper, but you need to draw your flowchart either online or on a piece of paper and then take a picture of it so it can be inserted into your lab. Now, the flowchart, basically, you are going to be starting with 2 liquids, 1 soluble solid, and 3 insoluble solids all mixed together. And then you are going to use a flowchart with circles showing processes and boxes showing the materials that are the results of those processes. So basically, if you decant these things, what's going to end up in one container, what's going to end up in another. You will continue filling this out until each substance has its own square. I will be providing a video showing a sample of how to do this and this slide as well so that you can work on this flowchart. That is what you need to have done after you finish all of these videos today. So here are some informations about the different separation techniques that we have used in class. So here is a breakdown of what you need to do for sludge. Before lab begins, before you can get your sludge and go back into lab, you need to fill out your sludge flowchart. You need to open your sludge daily tracker and share it with your partner. And you need to open your sludge final report for the first time to make sure that you have access to it and you know what you are doing. Each day, you need to write down the helpful hints, you need to record data in your sludge daily tracker, and you need to fill out your sludge final report, whatever you can for that day. At the end of the lab, you need to submit the sludge daily tracker as a group on Schoology, and you need to submit the sludge final report individually on Schoology. So that is what you need to do. Your next task for the e-learning day is after this. You're going to have access to the sludge pre-lab quiz. You need to score a perfect score on that quiz. So if you need to, come back to this video and scroll through to find the parts of the questions that you missed so that you can answer them correctly. But before you will be allowed into lab, I'm going to need, or before you can get access to the flowchart information, you need to complete that quiz. So good luck to all of you.